So we got these different business logic rules, and we've got these types representing our different possibilities. So we have your feed, global feed, or tag feed. In each of these scenarios, we are logged in or not, and we have the active tab. And those are the sort of two pieces of information we have to work with. So the good part is we have a sort of single source of truth. We have exactly the information that we need, and we have no competing sources of truth as to which tab is active or whether or not we're logged in. It's just these two right here. So in the event that we have your feed as the active tab, we have we're already aware that you are logged in. We shouldn't have to deal with a separate case of you're not logged in. That shouldn't be able to come up. In the actual version of this, I simplified it a little bit for the exercise, but the actual version of this, we're using cred inside this to make sure that you actually can't have this without being logged in for sure. In this case, theoretically, that could come up, but for the purpose of the exercise, we'll assume that it can't, just like it can't in the real version. Okay, so we're inside our tab and our your feed, and we need to render something here. So by default, we're rendering empty list, but what we actually want to render is a list of tabs. So we have this thing called view tab, which is going to take a list of attributes followed by a string message tuple and return HTML message. So how does that work? Inside view tab, we have it's an li with a nav item, and it renders an a with the sort of like the nav link for that particular thing. So how do we decide what to pass in for this tuple? Well, as it turns out, we have a list of tuples right here that conveniently match up with exactly the tabs that we have. So your feed is a string of your feed followed by a tuple of the, or tupled together with the appropriate message for what should happen when you click the your feed tab. Same thing with global feed, same thing with tag feed. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to say view tab followed by the particular tab that we want to view. So for example, we might say view tab and then empty array because we don't want to specify any extra attributes there. And then for the tuple here, we might say your feed. That's going to give us back some HTML message, which we will then put inside our list right here. So let's see what that does. Okay, compiled it. Oops, didn't mean to refresh the slides, but we did. Okay, so that's not doing anything yet because when we have view tabs, that's calling this here, and we're not calling the your tab thing because we're not signed in. So I need to sign up. Okay, now I'm logged in, and we have this glorious your feed tab. Excellent. That is exactly what we wanted. We also, according to the business logic, are supposed to render a global feed. So let's put one of those in there too. Oops. What's the problem there? Oops, view tag. Wrong function, similar name. All right, so now we have both of those, but neither of them is rendering as active. What's up with that? Well, the problem there is fundamentally that view tab expects this attribute here to be passed in with a class of active if it's going to be actually active. And we're currently not passing in any extra classes there. So there we go. Now we can see that your feed is the active tab. However, as soon as I click global feed, nothing good happens. The tabs all disappear. Reason for that being, we don't actually have any logic in here for global feed. But we know how global feed is supposed to work. It's supposed to work fundamentally the same thing as your feed, except of course the which one is selected should be different. Now this isn't quite true because this is assuming that we are logged in. So in the logged in case, yes, fair enough, this is how it ought to work, and this will now allow us to click back and forth between the two. But we do want to handle this additional case of what happens if we are not logged in. We want to show something slightly different. So we're going to do a conditional here. If is logged in, then we're going to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to render your feed. We're just going to render the global feed. Okay. So now we can see that this logic still works the same way as before. But if I open this in incognito mode, we only see the global feed. We don't see your feed. Okay. So far, so good. So we've handled each of those cases. Now we need to handle the tag feed case. Once again, tag feed is going to have two different branches, one for logged in and one for not logged in. And the only difference between the two is going to be whether or not your feed exists in the list. So in both cases, when you have the tag feed, not only do you only have a tag feed rendered when it's the active one, according to our final piece of business logic, but we also have the rule that when it's rendered, it's supposed to be last. So we're going to put that at the end there, and we're going to say view tab, class active, and tag feed, tag name. Okay, and that's getting a little horizontally excessive, so we'll start to organize these more vertically like this. Okay, so now we have your feed, global feed, and the active one being the tag feed with that particular tag name. So tag feed, because each tag feed has a particular tag that it's supposed to display, takes that string as an argument. So let's see how that looks. So by default, no tags. As soon as I pick one, bam, now we have some tags. And as soon as I click back, the tags go away. And last but not least, we have the situation where we are not logged in which case it's the same as before, but with, without the your feed option. So global feed and now tag feed. So there we go. We have now successfully enumerated all of the possible states. We have no additional sources of truth. This is essentially immune from the bug that we saw in the slides where multiple tabs are active at the same time. Now granted, we could still induce that bug by doing something like this. That would produce way too many global feeds. We have certainly not ruled out that possibility. However, this is it's a much easier mistake to detect. The problem with the other one was that, as with so many multiple sources of truth bugs, it was a race condition. It only happened with certain timing characteristics. In this one, at least if we're going to make a mistake, it's always going to be a mistake. It's not going to be based on the particular timing of how you happen to be clicking between these things, which is a much better place to be.